not prepared!
Welcome to another video, guys. Today I'm gonna give you 10 exact tips you can follow so you can reach easy legend yourself. You can also use these tips even after you've reached legend. And you might notice you have been doing some things not exactly correctly too. Hope the video helps you, and if it did, you know what to do. Now let's check out the first tip. The first thing you really need to start doing if you've never reached legend before is change your mentality. I've seen this in a lot of people who haven't reached legend before, and they're just scared. They think that reaching legend is some absolutely astonishing, impossible goal. Guys, it really isn't. Legend is really something you eventually hit just by keep on playing the game with the correct mentality. You have to stop thinking that this is something impossible, and you gotta realize it just takes a lot of games, especially the first time. If you keep on playing with a correct mentality, and don't get frightened of clicking the play button, which a lot of you are guilty of by the way, you really will get eventually there, especially if you follow the future tips as well. Above all else, reaching legend is a grind. But as long as you have a 51% win rate, you will eventually get there, trust me. The final push from rank 5 to legend can be especially daunting, but as long as you keep a cool head, you play concentrated and you know what you're doing, you will get it. And once you do, every other next time it's gonna be a lot easier. The next tip is kinda obvious, but we have to state it still. Play a good meta deck. Reaching first time legend could be pretty hard, but if you use a good meta deck, that is gonna be a lot easier. I know you might be enjoying playing meme decks and stuff like that, but leave the legend climb for the real decks, and then meme around after you've actually completed your legend goal. Play something that is already tested and working, so you don't have to second guess if your deck is good or not, and you can concentrate on your own plays. The best place for meta decks in my book is HS Replay. This site really has a lot of good information, and you can grab a very good deck without even having to look too hard. And it's especially worth it using their paid service as well. But if you can't afford that, you can definitely check out my top 5 videos, where I do my best to actually give you all of the best decks out there, and I also give you mulligan guides, win rates, and all of the good stuff for them too. So you actually have a good idea of what you will be doing with those decks, and if you actually like them or not. Not only must you pick a good meta deck, but you also need to actually know how to play it. And again, you can check out all of my deck guides, some of which even include paid coaching sessions, so you can really get deep into the deck before you start spending your hard-earned dust. Net decking a good meta deck without knowing how to play it is really not gonna cut it for you, especially for your first legend. And no matter how many games you put into it, if you keep playing them wrong, you're just shooting yourself in the foot. A wise man once said, misplaying 10 hours with a good meta deck can save you 5 minutes watching a good deck guide. So please, save yourself the trouble and actually watch a good deck guide before you jump into it, so you can see all of the intricacies of those decks. Another thing you need to do in order to get yourself to legend easier for the first time especially is play on a computer. The main reason why playing on a computer is so good right now is because it's basically the only place you can actually have a good working deck tracker on it. A deck tracker really helps you a ton, so you can be making good decisions and actually play optimally, and no matter how good you are at tracking your stuff, you will never be as good as a good deck tracker. Even if you think you're following everything you need to be following, deck tracker follows that and then some. The deck tracker I like using is Hearthstone Deck Tracker, again from hsreplay.net. It's not a sponsored video, boys, I just like the site. And it's really one of the best deck trackers out there. You can also check out Firestone if you're a fan of that, but personally I just don't like it too much, at least yet. Even though it does have some cool features I really wish HS Deck Tracker had as well. I'm not gonna get into too much detail about Deck Tracker, because you already probably know what it does. But one of the features that a lot of people actually don't know about is damage counter, which counts the total amount of damage you have on the board ready to go face for the next turn, as well as what your opponent's damage is as well. And that can really save you a lot of time figuring out some big board lethal outs, as well as knowing when you should be playing around lethals for the opponent's turn as well. You can check out my detailed deck tracker guide, which I will leave a card of at the top right corner, so you can know how to enable all of the cool features deck tracker has to offer. While we're on the playing on a computer subject, it's also worth noting that you also need to be concentrated while playing and not multitask like scrolling social medias, watching a movie, or watching your favorite streamer. I stream every Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, and Sunday, by the way, just so you know. But yeah, when you're trying to climb ranks, please just do that. Do not try to multitask and concentrate fully on the game. Concentrate on what your opponent's doing, concentrate on what you should be doing, and basically just concentrate on the game. You do not want to be misplaying when trying to hit legend for the first time, because it's really gonna set you back. If you're just trying to have fun and you're doing some stupid stuff like achievement hunting or mercenary farm, yeah, sure, watch videos, watch movies, heck, I even do it. But when you're trying to actually climb ranks, you just gotta do that only, and give it your all so you can actually climb. Another thing you need to master to actually start hitting legend left and right is to know how to mulligan in different situations. The 3 questions you need to ask yourself each game in the mulligan phase is what you're playing against, are you going first or second, and what you're expecting from your opponent. And that will drastically change the way you mulligan. If you're going first, for instance, you will want to be curving out on the board and putting stuff, and you're gonna be expecting that your opponent is gonna be trying to answer that stuff. If you're going second, however, you're gonna be the one who needs to be answering what your opponent is asking. So generally, when going second, you could be keeping more removal spells and stuff like that, whereas when you're going first, removal is usually not what you want to be seeing. The better you know the meta, the better you will be at mulliganing as well, and the better you will be at predicting what to expect from your opponent. You can also check out the mulligan guides I give you for decks, and that is gonna give you a better idea of what you need to be doing in certain situations. Another very important tip here is to actually know the meta. Picking a good meta deck is one thing, but knowing all of the good meta decks out there and what you need to be expecting is a different story. But the sources where you can get that information from are basically the same. You can check out my top 5s, and you can also check out hsreplay.net. If you have the paid feature, you can even see the popularity for each rank for each class. And as you can see right now for Legend we have Thief Rogue at the top for Legend, in Diamond it's Quest Warrior and Libram Paladin and Face Hunter, and so on and so forth. You can take this tip a step further and actually pinpoint the exact deck your opponent might be playing as soon as you see some sort of a weird card in there. And what you can do is use the free feature hsreplay.net gives you and go to decks and scroll down to the search field for cards included into a certain deck. If you for instance are playing against a Warlock and he plays the Quest, but also plays something like Flame Imp for instance, you can click those 2 cards and see what sort of wacky deck he's actually running, and this is gonna give you a pretty good idea of what you need to be playing around. This will really help you know what to expect from the opponent and also play accordingly to it. Moving down to another tip that players that haven't reached Legend are really guilty of. Plan out your entire turn before you start executing it. I know it's tempting starting to throw cards every time your turn starts, but it's really gonna be beneficial for you to actually think about your entire turn before you start executing it, because sometimes you might realize you're mana short or there's something better you could have done. It would be very beneficial for you to actually take a few seconds before you start throwing cards and ask yourself about all of the things you could be doing that turn. You might decide there's a better line of play you might be taking, or you might figure out there's a better way of executing a turn. For instance, when you figure out your turn and you know you will be drawing a card or discovering a card, make sure to do that first as long as it doesn't interfere with the play itself. That way you will get some extra information before you start throwing your other cards, and that might change the play entirely. I'm not saying every time you have a discover card or a draw card do that first, but I'm saying do that if you've already decided that you will be doing that card in that set turn. And that way you might find a better turn in the process and change your play entirely. Another important tip is to actually position properly against different classes. Right now there are quite a few positioning-centric cards you need to be playing around, including stuff like Bola Shot, Chain Lightning, Combustion, Reaper's Sigh, Lake Thrasher, and Dark Moon Rabbit. There are probably more cards you need to be playing around, but these are off the top of my head right now. And when you're playing against a certain class, try to position properly against those cards. For instance, with mages, you want to be having your biggest health minion in the middle. For warriors, if you can, put your taunt on the far left side and have a buffer minion in between them. Or when you don't have taunts, make sure your highest attack minion's in the middle so they actually have to take the most amount of damage if they want to be cleaving everything. Same goes with Lake Thrasher, and with Dark Moon Rabbit it has to be a good taunt with a good buffer in between them so it only cleaves 2 minions at most. I know none of these cards are actually very popular right now, but let's not forget people discover stuff a lot, and that is popular. So if it doesn't actually hurt you to position properly against these classes, make sure to do it, and in some games it's actually gonna be worth it for you. But also be careful to position properly with your own minions too, if you have something like Battlemaster in your deck, in which case you want your highest attack minions next to each other, in most cases at least. Another thing you don't want to be doing when you're actually tryharding for Legend is don't give your opponent information you don't need to give them. For instance, if you're playing Face Hunter and you already have a Rhino in hand and you play a Warsong Wrangler, next turn make sure to actually play the Rhino, which you did draw with Warsong Wrangler. And that way your opponent is not going to be expecting that you have a second one already. Same goes with Rogue with Find the Imposter, for instance. If you got a rewarded Fizzle at one of the steps, but you've already played your Scabs as well, make sure to use the Fizzle you got from the Scabs first, because the opponent has to know you have all 5 gizmos from that one, but he is not gonna expect the second Fizzle later. These are the more obvious ways of giving information to your opponent. But you might also give information by hovering over a targeting card over your opponent's minions, and that way they're gonna have a good idea of what you're probably targeting with. So be careful doing that, and actually think if you're gonna be using that before you do it. Another thing you should learn doing is not to overextend. When you are playing against classes that you know have powerful removals, it might be better for you to play a weaker turn and save some resources for after, when your opponent probably makes a good clear on you. For instance, if you're expecting a Hysteria from the opponent, try not to give them enough minions so they make a full clear, and you actually have something left over. When expecting a Soul Rend, stop playing small minions and actually try to make something bigger than 5 health. And also think about a Snowfall Guardian, because you do not want to board lock yourself, meaning that you have 7 minions on the board, and that way a single Snowfall Guardian literally cripples your entire next turn. So try to be smart about how much stuff you want to be putting out on the board, so you don't get completely annihilated by a single good removal out of them. And this way you will have some refill after that. And the number 10 tip here is you need to know when the game scammed you and when you've actually misplayed and that is why you lost the game. There will be times where the game literally gives you 0 chance of ever winning a certain game, and God knows I've seen that too many times. Sometimes your mulligan will entirely brick and you will drop all of your bottom cards, leaving you with no actual plays for the early game. And in certain situations, there's not much you could have done about it, honestly. You just take the loss and hope you do better in the next one. But when you do actually do a misplay, try to blame yourself and don't blame the game too much in that case. Even if the game still scammed you with some high RNG for the opponent or some low RNG for you after that, you're still the one that actually made a misplay in that game and you could have done something better. So try to concentrate on the things you can actually change and don't get too mad about the things you couldn't. If all else fails, you can also hire me for some coaching, and you can be sure we will hit that legend like I did with so many people already. Coaching starts for less than $20 per hour if you hire me for a 3-hour coaching session, and you can be sure I will help you pinpoint all of the areas you need to improve in your gameplay so you can actually start hitting legend on your own as well. Anyway, that's gonna be it for this video, guys. I hope this video really helps you climb some easy ranks in the new year. Would be awesome if you drop a like and a subscribe to the channel too. Thanks for watching. I'm Kris05 and I'll see you in my next video or stream.